Well, what a pleasure, first of all, just to be here and to share this virtual stage with such an interesting and diverse panel. So thanks so much for the opportunity. I've titled my talk, How Our 134-Year-Old Startup is Scaling VR Surgical Training. And of course, the 134-year-old startup line is a little bit tongue-in-cheek. We are definitely not a startup. I think everyone recognizes that. We have quite a long and proud history at Johnson & Johnson, but we do challenge ourselves to try and act like one. So I know everyone is already very familiar with J&J, but you might not know the Johnson & Johnson Institute. So let me just provide you with a little bit of context about who we are and what I do within the Institute. And then I'll share with you a bit about our experience building and now scaling our virtual reality surgical training platform, and share a few lessons, I think, or principles that we've learned along the way as well. So the J&J Institute is a division within our medical devices sector, responsible for reaching and training all of the healthcare professionals around the globe who use our products in operating theaters every day. So traditionally that has been at brick and mortar training institutes that we run. But increasingly, we're leaning more and more into digital and online education. And my role within the Institute is I lead a small team, a small but mighty team, I like to say, called the Technology and Innovation Group. And we work with all of the different education teams across the med device sector. And we help those teams begin to integrate new and emerging technology into their training curricula for healthcare professionals. And I'm not just saying it because this particular talk track is around VR. I'm saying it because it's true. Our largest and probably most powerful project that we manage today is our VR surgical training platform. And the work we're doing there, I think, is really important, not just because of the pandemic that we're experiencing that's preventing us from doing our traditional kind of in-person hands-on training. But even pre-pandemic, I think this work was really important because, the environment that our customers are operating in, are working in, I think has changed dramatically over the last several years. Surgery itself is becoming more complex. Procedures are more complex. The products that we produce are more sophisticated than ever. And that means that surgeons and OR teams need more training than they used to before they can safely adopt these new devices. It used to be that we could bring a surgeon to, a sort of transactional one-day in-person course, teach them pretty effectively how to use our products, and then set them on their way. And that really is less and less true today. And so we need to provide more training opportunities to surgeons so that they can get more comfortable with the products. At the same time, though, like even us non-surgeons, the time available to devote to training is just decreasing. Demands on a surgeon's both professional and personal lives, I think, are more now than probably at any time before. Administrative burden, family obligations, what have you. And so there's just less time available to train. And so you're trying to squeeze, it's like this really difficult spot of having more to learn, but less time to do it. And then on top of that, and this is not really a new problem, but I think one that we're just maybe more attuned to as we've gotten better at education. And that's this notion that if you want to improve at something, you need pretty immediate feedback on your performance in order to do that. Without feedback, you don't really know where you are on your learning curve, and you don't really know what gaps you might have or where you need to make improvements. And in the world of surgery, objective feedback on performance is hard to come by. And it's these kind of three problems. There are probably more that I could go into, but it's really these three problems, I think, that got us so excited about virtual reality and its potential use for surgical training. Rather than bringing someone into a cadaver lab that is only a one-time single use, you can use VR over and over again. So the notion of needing more training, I think, is solved there. As I'll show you in a moment, the form factor and the evolution of VR is just now conducive to that notion of anytime, anywhere training. So that it is really able to fit into busy slots for our trainees, our surgeons. And then really importantly, and I'm sure Justin will talk about this during his talk as well, the ability to actually score somebody's performance in VR and give them feedback on it is just really meaningful and helps them to improve. And so, we've been on this journey now for a few years, and I'll just quickly kind of walk you through what that has looked like. You can see on the left side of the screen, this is when we got our start. And we started with, you can see the headset here, obviously tethered to the laptop, and then these had outside-in trackers. It was a nice system, and we had a nice little library of surgical procedures that we created. Pretty awesome experience when we put surgeons into it. They all raved about it. These systems were awesome in 2017. They're still awesome today, and we have dozens of these kind of circulating around the globe and being used still today with customers. But that was really where we got our start in VR, and where we knew there was a real there in terms of its value. A really big milestone was reached when a surgeon and researcher from Imperial College London, Kartik Lajasetti, actually initiated a study where he looked actually at the content we had created for total hip arthroplasty, and basically took surgical trainees and split them into two groups, randomized them into two groups. One group that got access to a VR headset and could use it for a period of a few weeks, and the other group that was what we'll call traditionally trained. So they were reading textbook chapters, they were watching surgical videos, they're observing surgery. And then both groups went into a lab and were asked to complete a total hip arthroplasty on a cadaver, and were rated by more senior surgeons who were blinded as to which group each participant had been put into. And they were rated on their performance. And as you can see on the screen here, the results were pretty amazing. 83% of the VR trained surgeons were able to do that procedure with minimal or no guidance, whereas none of the non-VR trained surgeons were able to accomplish the same. And maybe even more powerful, I think, is that even the lowest rated of the VR trained surgeons performed better than the best of the non-VR trained surgeons. This was incredibly validating data for us, not only to convince perhaps end users, surgeons, that it's worth their while to put on a VR headset and try it out, but it also helped us to, quite frankly, to convince some stakeholders, even internal to J&J, and to really get the fuel that we needed to really take this platform to the next level. And that's kind of what you see in the image here underneath 2020, where you can see you've got an end user there practicing in VR using an Oculus Quest. I actually need to update this picture because we've now moved to the Oculus Quest 2. But now we're untethered, and we're working with a new developer, Oso VR, who I know you'll be hearing about more, so I won't tell you a ton about them. But we really, have gone from a few dozen of the 2017, sort of what we call our 1.0 version, to now hundreds of these headsets that we're now deploying globally, and I think, even quickly scaling from there. So making quite an impact. I'll show you just a very, very short clip of what it looks like. I hate showing VR video clips because I find that it never does it justice. As you all probably all know, you need to sort of put the headset on and see it yourself. But this is just a portion from one of the procedures that our development partner, Oso VR, has created for us. And it's incredibly, incredibly lifelike. So with all of that said, I'll close by just giving you a few lessons I think that we've learned along the way, or principles that we've kept in mind. And I think these apply not only to VR, but kind of any new tech initiative that you might embark upon. So first is fall in love with the problem, not the solution. You'll find, or I've certainly found, that when people put on a VR headset or really any new technology, they get really excited about it. And then it becomes a solution, and it has the danger of becoming a solution in search of a problem. If you're going to embark on this, if you're going to try and start building something, start with a problem that you know that you want to solve, and then work toward that. And the other thing I'd say, sort of related to that, is in the case of VR, it's not really just about what we can do when we're in that VR experience or in the headset. It's what are you trying to enable people to do after they've used VR. So in our case, you heard us talk about, we're trying to improve surgeons' performance, build something toward that. So whatever your use case is, think about what you're trying to empower your users or your learners to do and build toward that. The other one that I have to remind not only myself, but some of my internal team members as well is yes, think big. but start small. And if you find yourself saying, either out loud to a colleague or even inside your own head, if you start saying things that start with the phrase, hey, wouldn't it be amazing if we, I'm not saying to abandon those ideas, but maybe put them on a, off to the side and put them on a roadmap. Start with something achievable. I often come back to one of my favorite quotes, which is known as Gall's Law. A complex system that works is invariably found to have evolved from a simple system that worked. And so it would be amazing, yes, if we had the ability to upload patient-specific anatomy and, train in VR on that. It would be amazing if I could take the data from, the end user's performance in VR, merge that with some other data set and provide recommendations on what other training experience we should provide. And one day we'll get to all those things. But trying to design and run that all from scratch, you're sort of bound for failure. So my advice to anyone is think about sort of tightening your scope and building something simple that works. And then the last thing I'll say is to keep in mind that success is a team sport. And when I say that, you probably think that what I mean is that, within J&J, we need to assemble a good team to sort of build this out. And that certainly is true. But I would even suggest that think of your team as extending beyond the walls of your organization or your company. And really, there are sort of three different players in really any industry that's now being reshaped by digital. There's always the sort of the industry incumbents. So in the healthcare space, a company like Johnson & Johnson. And historically, I used to only sort of think about what were my peers in this space, the Medtronics, the Strykers of the world doing. I didn't have to worry about much else. But as digital is reshaping literally every industry, you've got to sort of also look left and right at what are these smaller kind of tech startups doing, and then what are the digital giants doing. When I say digital giants, these are obviously companies that began as startups but are now running much of the world. These are your Apples, your Amazons, your Googles, your Facebooks, your Microsofts, and the like. They're creeping into every industry, healthcare included. And that can be very threatening for an industry incumbent like ourselves, or it can be tremendously exciting. And we've chosen to take the exciting view. And if you can find companies, startups or digital giants alike, that are aligned to your mission, their company cultures might be different, but their mission is aligned to yours. What we found is that you can accomplish things that you would never be able to do alone. And so for us, you've heard me reference it a few times already. We're using the Oculus for Business platform. That's allowing us to scale our VR training platform faster than we could ever have hoped to have done alone. And then our development partner, Oso VR, is just able to move quickly and challenge us to really rethink the way we do our VR surgical training. And so, we have meetings with both of these companies, together, and we really operate as one team. Has it been completely smooth sailing? I can't say that it has, right? Like each company has its own culture and you've got to sort of work through that. But on the whole, I think it's been tremendously productive. And I'm not saying, that you've got to partner with Oculus or that you've got to partner with Oso, although our experience has been good. What I am saying is, think about how to align yourself with partners that can help you, really take what you're trying to do to that next level. So those are just a few of the things that we've learned along the way. So just to kind of quickly wrap up, really focus on your problem, start with, think big, but start small, and then surround yourself with a great team. And so with that, I'll just say thank you very much for the opportunity, and my contact info you see there is below if anyone has any other questions or would like to learn a little bit more. Thanks so much, David.